Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis Williams, co-founder of Business Skills for Health Professionals, and welcome to our podcast, Beyond Clinical. In this podcast, I'll be interviewing health professionals from diverse backgrounds who have moved into unconventional roles beyond clinical. We'll be hearing their stories and tips, and I hope that this inspires you to pursue unique career paths. So today is episode 16 of the podcast, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Hillary Webster. Do you want to say hi?
Hi everyone. Hi Alexis. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to have you. I'll share a little bit about your background before we jump in. So Hillary began her career as a naturopathic doctor, forging a sustainable practice for 5 years. Then she freelanced as a medical writer for natural health companies to give her variety from her clinical work. After a family event, she began a corporate career in healthcare marketing, building her own digital marketing team and using her clinical skills to be a culture-obsessed manager. She now transitioned into health tech and works in a content marketing role at a scaling startup. So yeah, I am very excited to hear more about your story, but I want to start out with a little bit of a fun question. Just kind of asking you, are there any exciting health and wellness trends that you're into right now?
So working in marketing, I would like to apologize for the terrible quality of my video right now. I love working behind the scenes, but I'm excited to be in front of the camera today. But I would love to dive into that. So I'm on TikTok and Instagram, just scrolling reels, and I think my favorite trend that keeps coming up is the cottage cheese trend, the obsession with cottage cheese as a protein source. I saw it all over TikTok probably 6 months ago. And I've been blending my cottage cheese since 2012. So I feel like maybe I
Oh,
was doing it before it was cool.
that is so funny. I literally just saw blended cottage cheese TikTok like an hour ago, and I was thinking, and I actually bought some cottage cheese for the second time and it went bad. So I need to action this cottage cheese thing because it is making a comeback. Because you're right, it was really popular in my early days as a dietitian. It was the thing that we were always talking about, trying to get people to eat. But it's really interesting seeing all these creative ways that people are now using it that definitely seem a lot tastier. Do you have a favorite way that you like using it?
Oh my gosh. I'm not very fancy. I often just use it as yogurt, I think, or as a replacement or a switch up from Greek yogurt. I know people have been making really cool ice creams and protein packed cookie dough and things like that, but I'll just swirl in some nut butter and maybe something crunchy, and then we're good to
Mm,
go.
yummy. Okay, good to know. I'm going to give that a try. So yeah, I'd love to hear if you can tell us a little bit about your career journey, kind of beyond the bio that I just shared.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to provide a little bit of extra color. Having someone read your bio to you is such a strange, or on your behalf is always a strange thing. And I'm like, the writer in me is editing as you're reading it. It's interesting. So yeah, to start, I had always had an interest in medicine, and then when I was in graduate school the first time for English literature, I I kind of got, I got sick in the way that doctors couldn't really give me an answer for. And it took me many years to finally get a diagnosis of PCOS. But that was the kind of the inciting event that said, okay, let's look into being a naturopathic doctor and being able to provide answers for people when they're not necessarily, when other people are kind of not sure what to do, with
Hmm.
their health. And that's how I practiced. And so that I did that for 5 years, becoming a naturopathic doctor, but I still had the background of writing. And there were a few opportunities that I got early on to start doing medical writing or technical writing for supplement companies or the companies in the natural health product space. And so I was clinician by day, but then I was moonlighting as this medical writer. And it was actually really nice because the introvert in me gives so much during my
Hmm.
patient visits. And then writing was a way to recharge. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was really, really, really wonderful. A great opportunity to be able to have some variety in my practice. And then about 4 or 5 years in, as I said in my bio, I did have a bit of a family tragedy, and which really realigned my perspective, and I made a really, really difficult decision to leave my practice and to take on a corporate role. And it was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. I'm sure anyone who's either thinking about it or who has, transitioned from a private practice to a corporate role, probably went through a similar series of emotions. It was really, really challenging to be able to have to say goodbye to a lot of really wonderful people I was working with. But it really, once I entered the corporate world, a lot of things start, like, there were a lot of really wonderful advantages that I got to enjoy. And one of them is I had a really lucky opportunity to be promoted from blog writer to digital marketing manager in a really short span of time, in 3 months. And
Mm.
it was quite a roller coaster, very much a journey. Not only was I building the plane while I was flying it, which is what in fast-paced, startup-like environments, that's always the case,
Mm-hmm.
but I was also reading the instruction manual and learning how to build planes while building planes while flying planes. And so that was that was a really, really exciting growth opportunity for me to be able to learn everything about digital marketing. Because when I started that job, I didn't know what a landing page was, I didn't know anything about Facebook ads, I didn't know anything about SEO, and I was just a writer. And I filled in all the gaps in the years that I was there. And then I transitioned from my first job now to a health tech company, and called Practice Better. And that's where I've been for the past few years, really streamlining my work from, just digital marketing overall into more content marketing. So content is a very nebulous word, I appreciate, but really just trying to get message to the right person and in the right place at the right time, really, ultimately. And it's kind of snowballed from there. We're a fast growing tech startup that's received, like a big bolus of funding. So it's been a really exciting journey, and learning to refine my craft even more from there.
That's amazing. It sounds like you've been able to grow, like that might be one of the advantages of working with some of these startups and companies in high growth stages is the ability to learn with them and grow as their needs grow, grow your own skills. Like I definitely heard that as a theme throughout what you were saying there. Very interesting. Yeah.
I think that's a
Um,
really great reflection that, if you don't want to change, your career, you might, or if you're here to change your career, you have to be growth minded. I think that's a great
mhm.
piece to thread to pull up.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually reflect a lot around having a health professional background and the transferability into maybe marketing and marketing roles. I wonder if you could share a little bit about kind of the transferable skills that you found you kind of brought to that role.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd like to. Well, there could be so many things I could touch on, because I feel very passionately about how the clinical toolkit is so well positioned to help you excel in various fields. But I'd say some of the most exciting opportunities for those skills to carry over have been as a manager as much as a marketer. But
Hmm.
I'll answer your question about marketing first, where I think one of the things, if you're in healthcare, you're probably pretty empathetic. And being an empath, it's really easy to be a great advocate for the voice of the customer. So in
Hmm.
marketing, we're listening all the time. We're using all of these really wonderful tools, and sometimes not very fancy tools at all, to be able to figure out what it is that customers want, and what it is that customers need, and are those two things the same thing? And so as a clinician, your listening skills are a phenomenal tool to be able to take a nugget of information and to be able to parse out the truth in there. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a combination of active listening and and empathy. So I use my interviewing skills, my clinical interviewing skills, my active listening skills all the time in my job because I'm asking customers lots of questions. We interview customers, trying to understand what their needs and wants are. And I found that those skills have been really, really helpful. And as a manager as well.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to have, some difficult conversations with employees who are maybe going through. I know mental health is a really, really big topic among corporate leaders, as well as clinicians, but as corporate leaders, similarly, everybody's worried about burnout and mental health and how we can better support people. And if you're an empath, if you have a clinical background, you're set above the rest to be able to hold space for people who are coming to you. If you have direct reports who are struggling, maybe at home, or they have a specific need, or maybe they're struggling at work, and you can offer them some support. You can provide, maybe you even have a toolkit of resources. Not that you would
Mm-hmm.
whip out your clinical toolkit, but be able to help them feel, you're not here treating them,
Mm-hmm.
but you're able to provide space for them to feel what they're feeling. And I found that's what people reflected back to me quite often, was that I was able to be there and be present
Mm-hmm.
for the people that I worked with, for my team members, and to be able to just, actually, I'll say this, you'd be surprised how rare actually caring is,
Mm-hmm.
in some environments. And so if you're someone who genuinely truly cares about your team members the way you cared about your patients or your clients, you're really well positioned to be a leader.
Oh, I love that. I actually have a whole talk on why health professionals make great leaders that I've been giving. And I really think just where we are in the world with high rates of burnout, high, like you said, mental health concerns at work as leaders, I think it's just so positive to have somebody that understands wellness. And that can be from a variety of different healthcare backgrounds, but you understand more about that than the average, maybe somebody with more of a business background. And like you said, you have the empathy, you have the care. So 100% agree with you there. I also really thought another thing that I've talked a lot about with marketing is, and you said this exactly as well too, like there's the buzzword customer centricity. Um, and that is actually very, very similar to patient-centered care, which is kind of like more of a clinical buzz term. So I've often thought about the parallels between like being able to put yourself in the shoes of the customer and truly understand what they need and listen to them. Like that is a huge value in the marketing space of having that background. So yeah, those were great ones. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of your networking, how that has helped you in your career, kind of both like in getting roles, internal networking within your company, any of that stuff? Yeah.
The internal networking part is really interesting because I consider myself an introvert, but I don't present that way.
Mm,
So naturopathic doctors and other clinicians in the health and wellness space are natural systems thinkers, right? So we don't think about one organ. We
mm-hmm,
think about the how everything interacts together. We're thinking about mind body connection. We're thinking about your HPA axis and what that means for your, your sex hormone health and things like that. And so I found I tended to think of the company that I worked for very holistically. And so
mm,
it was really intuitive to me the way all the departments work together, the way marketing works with sales, the way, right, some of the most exciting or coolest projects I've done recently have been with our data analytics team at Practice Better, and the way we can work together to produce a piece of content that's truly unique and proprietary and exciting, for example. So that's another thing that that's something that I maybe haven't taken for granted, but it's something I've certainly been aware of,
Hmm.
is that my inclination as a holistic practitioner at heart to want to just reach across, a
Hmm.
department and work with our customer support team, for example.
Hmm.
So all of my favorite projects have been cross-functional. So I'm a
Hmm.
relationship. We're all in healthcare, we're all about relationships. So we're
Yeah.
relationship builders and we want to reach out and we want to bust silos. And again, that's a really, really, really valuable thing in a company. And it allows you, and people like leaders at companies love that. They love it when people are natural connectors. So that's the internal part. The external part, it's a little bit specific to me because I've been doing my MBA part-time for the last 3 years and I'm just graduating now.
Oh,
And so
congrats. That's
thank
exciting.
you. I'm relieved. It's been a ton of hard work. And
Yeah.
a ton of hard work. Imagine working your full workday and then you have to go spend a few hours studying, learning financial statement analysis, for
Yeah.
example. It's a bit of a kick in the gut. Um, and so, but naturally, one of the things that they want you to do is to build your network. So I have
Hmm.
coffee chats with people. I also, just to reach out, I talk to people about innovation because
Hmm.
being in a health tech company, I'm really interested. For example, AI is a very popular topic these days, and I'm really
Hmm.
proud of the work that we're doing at my current company with respect to AI. And so being able to talk to people about those topics are really wonderful, or it's a really wonderful thing. So I guess, and then so I'm kind of in a unique position that way. I guess, is it helpful for me to explain? How I reach out to people, or is that like, how can
Yeah.
I best
I think it'd be
explain?
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. People are always looking to feel more confident making connections, I think.
Another thing I'd like people to think about is, um, people might want to reach out to you too. So it's not always about you reaching out to others, because I have people reach out to me all the time. Um, asking about health tech, and practice better, and so I love to be able to share my experience there, and people who are interested in making career transitions from their clinical roles. So I do that, but often it's just come to the situation, or come to the meeting not expecting anything but hoping to help. You're a
Hmm.
problem solver, you're a helper anyway, and if you can come to that meeting. Do you have someone you could make a connection with that person to? Can you help them with a problem, provide advice, give a referral? Um, that's probably the best. I have access to all these wonderful career coaches through my MBA program, and they're all kind of saying that same thing. Try not
Mm.
to have that expectation in mind, because it puts all this tension and then awkwardness, and it's
Mm.
still hard for me to reach out to people.
Hmm.
But if you're curious about somebody's journey and how they've gotten to where they are, I find, again, those clinical skills, because you're naturally curious and you want to solve problems, that's actually going to be your superpower when you go to reach out to people. But sometimes it feels like you're just anticipating jumping into a whole bunch of cold, like a cold lake every time. You
Hmm.
just gotta plug your nose and jump. Is often how I have to approach it. You just gotta press send and do the thing and reach out to folks.
Yeah, but I like how you phrased it around like maybe reflecting on how you can give to those conversations and add
Mhm.
value to that person. I think that could bring a lot of just make those more positive conversations for everyone. So that's a really interesting way of thinking about it. Um, I also liked what you said about the internal networking and kind of, I think as health professionals, we've done a lot of professional collaboration with other providers and, like you said, within health systems and networks. And I hadn't really thought about how that transfers to business until you said that, which is really insightful that that is actually a transferable skill that you could highlight as you're making your career transition is your ability to connect and collaborate with diverse teams. and like through that interprofessional collaboration that you've probably already done if you've worked in any kind of health setting. So that's a really good one.
Yeah, I wish people don't I wish for people not to underestimate that, because that is a superpower.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's a real like big picture thinking ability too,
Mhm.
right? Like the ability to kind of I like the analogy you made to like the body systems and how a company kind of all fits together too. That's a really great, it's a really great visual. Um, yeah. So what did you find that you needed to maybe learn? Like what were some of the gaps? And obviously you've gone back to do your MBA. But are there things that you found like, oh, I really needed to learn to kind of transition into more of like a corporate business environment?
Yeah, you tend to need to learn the industry or field specific skills. So as I said at the beginning, I didn't really know a heck of a lot about digital marketing, and I found myself on a digital marketing team.
Mm,
But I found, but just that willingness to learn,
hmm
really, and that growth mindset really, really helped me out there. It was also, I think, a month after I assumed the role of the department manager, the pandemic happened, and
mm,
so after kind of trying to figure out how to work from home all day and support a team who was working from home, and it was so new to everybody, I had the fortune of being able to just, you know, on Coursera and just learn more about all the foundations of marketing
hmm
at night. And so I was just so hungry to catch up,
hmm
to have a baseline knowledge. So that's number one. And I had a very supportive boss as well, who said, "We'll upskill you. Go find a continuing education course and take that course." And so I
hmm
found one. U of T offered a Foundations of Digital Marketing Strategy course, and I took that. And that gave me some tools to bring back to our department, because it was a very small kernel and nucleus of the department that kind of grew up from there. And I was able to introduce some of those concepts. Like we weren't briefing, doing any creative briefing or anything like that. And so I said, well, this is a brief, and we're going to start doing that, to brief our creatives on our advertising campaigns that we're going to do. We very much started out as an advertising department, and um, then kind of spun off from there. And then the other thing that like, this is all apart from the MBA. The other thing that I was willing to do is just read and learn and just be hungry
hmm
and to be humble and learn from my team members and my colleagues, because they were phenomenal teachers, and I was so grateful to have them, because I really feel like, and forgive the cliche, that I was standing on the shoulders of giants, that these people took the time to educate me about the basics of SEO and the basics of how a website worked and the basics of what search engine marketing and pay and social media marketing, what all of those mean. And I'm so grateful that they supported me, and so I supported them in return. So you can absolutely learn from your colleagues. I also learn from my colleagues still all the time, every day, and they learn from me, and it's a
hmm
really wonderful thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, especially if you're like maybe taking on a leadership role, um, just remembering that you don't have to know the detail of everything that happens on your team, like, and you can learn from them. You don't have to already be the expert. I had leaders that took that approach, and it was very refreshing. Like they came from maybe not having a health background to being the vice president of a team that was all health professionals that I was leading. And I always found it really refreshing when they took the time to maybe experience what we were providing, the service, and like understand at a deep level what it was that that area did. And I think there's a lot of connection points to what you just said there, like the getting to know different people's roles on a team and learning from them. So that's great.
Yeah, don't pretend that you don't have to pretend that you know everything,
Yeah.
because people really respect a leader who says, "You know what? I don't know that." Now, having said that, why I worked so hard to catch up is you should have a baseline level
Yes.
of knowledge to be able to support people.
I agree.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, but you should absolutely, if you are in the position to hire people to shore up your weaknesses,
Yeah.
and to provide, to look at your blind spots for you, you absolutely should do that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I always talk about like when you build a team, it should not be people that are like you and have the same strengths as you. There's no point in having a team of similar people to you. You need to have diversity of skills in the team that you're building, and that's where you really see the most success, I think.
Yeah, so I hired people and appreciated people who had a lot of technical skills.
Hmm.
Who had kind of an IT frame of mind, who are able to set up, attribution frameworks, and who are able to do a lot of the data analytics, so I could, being a data driven, healthcare practitioner who used a lot of testing, I could handle the data or understand the data, but having the people who had the skill to be able to make that happen was so important. So yeah, I just wanted to provide a concrete example to bring that home.
Hmm. That's great. So what are you loving most about what you get to do right now?
Do I just have to pick one thing?
No, you can share a few.
um, What I love most, and I've spoken about this before, is the ability to work on a team of people. Um, it really truly is. They say if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, which is great. But you can really create something that is way better than you could do on your own when you bring other people who, again, maybe have strengths that are really different from yours. If you're bringing them to the table. I did a really interesting strengths-based assessment, through my MBA education, and I learned that, like, I'm very futuristic, I'm a problem solver, I'm an ideator, and I'm an empath, and I'm an activator. So you can tell, like, I want to go. I really want to get going. I get this idea, and I need to act on it. I need to do it. And so working with people who have different strengths that are more contextual and more analytical, they might want to sit back and say, okay, well, how about we spend a little bit of time understanding the problem before we jump to a solution?
Hmm.
And so working together, some of the stuff that we've created, bouncing ideas off each other, and then crystallizing that into like a finished product that you've worked shoulder to shoulder, figuratively, if not literally, um, working with people to create this really tangible, really neat thing. And in marketing, the cool part is you create things that get released out into the world, and then you get to see the feedback on it. Yeah, I think that teamwork has been my favorite part in of working in a corporate role, because it can be when you're in private practice, when you're a solopreneur and you're a clinician, it's really lonely. I'm sure you've
Hmm.
heard that a lot.
Definitely. And I feel that even now, like working, having a business versus leading a large team, it's very different. So I totally can relate to that. I think the other thing that you mentioned there that I can relate to is the value of having those different strengths on the team. Like we talked about that earlier, but if you've got someone with a lot of great ideas and energy and excitement, it's important to have the people who ask the questions and not slow it down, but make it a little more thorough. That was certainly my experience in starting up a program within a company and doing a lot of it with myself in the beginning and then bringing on team members and kind of realizing that, we needed to create processes and do things a little bit more methodically. So I really appreciate that one. Is there anything I think this is a silly question because you're finishing your MBA, but anything you're doing to develop your career growth or develop your like working on for career growth? Obviously, as you kind of come to this big thing that you've been working on for 3 years.
Yeah. So I've got all of this kind of abstract business knowledge now that I'm bringing to the table, but it's really at this point, it's kind of focusing in and starting to fine tune some of the craft. So I've been writing for a long time, but I can always improve. So some of the things that I still find time to do, this extra growth stuff. And so my manager just recommended a book on writing skills, and initially, you think, okay, well, I've got this covered. I don't need to do this. And then you check yourself and you say, you know what? I could always improve this craft. And it is, communication is a strength of mine. I love teaching. I love relating to people. I love any sort of communication. And so an opportunity to lean into my strengths instead of trying to shore up all my weaknesses, I should really leap at. So
Hmm.
it's really kind of that. I've spent the MBA degree trying to shore up a lot of weaknesses and filling gaps. And
Hmm.
now it's time to really capitalize on some strengths. So
Mm.
even further perfecting writing, because that's a skill that investment into will always pay ROI.
Yeah.
Always, just leader. I was just talking to someone today saying, the best leaders are great communicators, are great writers, which means they can create an idea, they can form that idea and just communicate it really clearly. And so that's an invaluable skill. So that's something that I'm kind of up to right now. Just, I don't know, I bought a book that was recommended to me, and I'm gonna read it. I've been told it's a fun read. It's called Everybody Writes, and so that's something that I'll be doing. But also, I'm looking forward this summer to being a human.
Yeah.
And so development isn't just professional development. So
Hmm.
every year I like to learn a new skill. 2 years ago it was tennis. Last summer it was sailing. This summer we're gonna try to. Maybe I'll have a friend. Maybe we'll take boxing lessons or something like that. That's the kind of the top pick right now. Yeah, to invest in just other aspects of yourself, because you're not just, as much as I like to think of myself as just a brain in a jar. um you're not. Like, I am a naturopathic doctor at heart, or I was, right? And so I have to take care of this body, and that means doing other
Hmm.
things that make me feel a little bit more human and bring me back into that body, and a little bit less out of the books every once in a while.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so important. I agree. And I think there's a lot of value in pushing yourself to try things sometimes, like recreational things. I've kind of been on a similar journey with learning a few slightly riskier sports in my 40s and being scared about them like the entire time, but it's been very rewarding to have like small achievements. So I've been learning skiing and mountain biking.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Mostly because my kids like them and I really like the family aspect of both of those sports. But yeah, it is hard to like push yourself to do things that you've never done before. But I think it does help you in so many ways, both physically, mentally, like all around. So kudos to you. I'm excited to hear about your boxing journey.
Thank you. And I love that I don't love that you're scaring yourself. I guess they say it's good for you or whatnot, but I hope you stay safe out there. But those sound like wonderful endeavors.
I should
Skiing
say
is great.
I'm
Yeah.
very cautious in my
Yeah.
extreme sports and they're done in a very like I take lessons and I'm methodical.
Yeah.
I'm not actually doing anything too scary.
That makes sense. That's wonderful. And I love that you're after it. That's great.
Awesome. Is there anything as you reflect back on kind of where you started in your career, is there anything you wish you could say to yourself, your early career self?
Yeah, I wish I took business school before I started my practice.
Yes.
Um, and I shouldn't, you know what, you shouldn't regret, because I love hearing about other people's journeys. Everybody goes on a different journey. It's,
Hmm.
I've seen it through all phases of my own career, and I've come across people, like, I've hired people who were cell biologists who then became, paid media marketers, and I've seen their career progression from there. I've actually, when I was building a team, I rarely hired people who were marketers, which was it was just an odd happenstance, but those are watching those people's journeys and progressions. They probably, if you had asked me 5 years ago if I'd be here, I would have left. Or if you had told me I would be here, I would have, left. It would have been a funny joke. Like, I wouldn't have expected to be where I am now. But yeah, just having, for all of the clinicians out there who are making it and making a living, without a business education, running a business and figuring it out on your own, and like, just kudos and hugs and applause and all of those wonderful things to you, because especially in the health industry, especially if you're in private practice and you're not, billing OHIP. It is a tough journey. It's an incredibly
Hmm.
difficult industry. The competition is fierce, and you got a lot of headwinds. And so kudos to you. Be gentle to yourself. And absolutely, if you could take a business, anything, at any point in your clinician journey or clinician to non-clinical journey, please do, because it's a really interesting experience.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that we're unfortunately you can't learn everything in one degree. And when you're becoming a health professional, I always hear the criticism that we should learn more business, but I don't know if that's really possible because you have to learn all the health stuff. That's pretty freaking important if you're going to be working with people's health. So I believe I agree with you. Like continuing education in the business space can be incredibly valuable, whether you're going to work in corporate or you're going to maybe start your own business. And they're actually quite different. Like my area is focused on people who want to work in more traditional corporate roles, but there are a lot of great options out there for people wanting to start their own health business. And I think those can be really valuable because there's a lot you don't know and you don't have to learn it the hard way. That's one way to do it. And that's kind of been some of my path too, but it's there's things out there that can help you. So yeah, I love that. Any final advice to listeners about kind of people who are interested in pursuing different career paths?
Yeah, I think the advice that I give to people the most often, if they're looking to transition out of a clinical role, is you're trained as a clinician, and a recruiter or a hiring manager, if you're trying to get a traditional corporate role, they're not going to look at your resume and see all of those amazing transferable skills you have automatically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Recruiters and hiring, whether they're in-house recruiters or they're external recruiters, they're trained in looking for someone who has that narrow band of
Mm-hmm.
qualifications, that is on the job description.
Yeah.
So you have to be one, you got to stick it out. It took me a while to transition out of my practice to find someone. A lot of people didn't know what a naturopathic doctor was, and so my resume was bizarre to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. But it took a while, and then you finally got someone. I finally got someone who took a chance on me to bring me into the interview, and I blew everyone else out of the water when it came to the writing components. They
Mm.
actually did a practical test, and these days practical tests are very common,
Mm-hmm.
when interviewing and going through the hiring process for roles. So that's super common. But when people are looking, when recruiters are looking, they're looking for the skills that are on the job description. So you really have to find, if you're going after roles, you got to find whatever is in your experience, that
Mm-hmm.
can help you find that role. So for me in particular, it was the writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to transition into a blog writer on a team because I'd been a blog writer freelance. So if you can do something freelance, if you have a few clients here and there, if you do even start doing something, I don't really believe in doing stuff for free, but if you just get that opportunity to develop that skill that is going to be useful on a team or in the field that you then transition into, I think that's the strongest thing. Because if you just have your clinical experience on a resume, it's really tough for
Mm-hmm.
hiring managers to understand. So, for example, I have a colleague who did some clinical operations work, and so now he's doing strategy work for the government. He made a really great transition, and so yeah, but it was because of that clinical operations work that he was able to make that move.
Interesting. Yeah. I think you're right. Like there's a lot about how do you tell a story about your clinical experience that aligns to what they need for that particular role. That's a lot of the
Mhm.
art of the at least the concrete application process for finding these roles. So that's really great advice. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll do my wrap up. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed hearing from Hillary and you're feeling inspired. If you want to engage more with our community, you can join our free Facebook or LinkedIn group, Business Skills for Health Professionals Community, and I'll put those in the show notes. I have two exciting programs to help health professionals. If you're wanting to make that career transition, I have my Beyond Clinical Career Transition program. And if you're a health professional already working outside of clinical, I just launched a new network a couple months ago where a network for health professionals working beyond clinical in different settings. So you can find out more about these. I'll link them in the show notes. And yeah, before we wrap up, any last thoughts or anything else you want to say, Hillary?
Good luck and don't doubt yourself for 1 second.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Well, we'll sign off there and wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thank you.